it's small, but you still can't eat it. Yeah. Oh, hello, chip dippers. Sorry, just never mind. Welcome to Retro Recipes. Now, in a recent episode, we looked at the A500 Mini prototype, and we did a little bit of a playtest as much as we were able. It's boring. We did a little bit of a playtest as much as RGL would allow of the prototype, but it did have a few restricted features that are only going to be in the final version. And I just got word from UPS. What's that stand for? Oh, yeah, uninterruptible power supply. That a package is out yet again for delivery. But I mean, I'm not that excited. We've basically seen everything. That one's only going to have, the full colors on the plastic and 21 extra games and the ability to load your own WHD load packages. But yeah, essentially it's the same as we've already seen. So I'm not excited at all. Are you? It's here! It's here! Let's go! Come on! We gotta go! Yeah.
Welcome.
There's Ladyfractic again. Gotcha. Say bye to Ladyfractic. And here it is. And I love this little detail that they put on the address label for us. Very cute. Now, I'm not going to cover things we covered in the last Recipode, where we looked at the prototype, which I happen to have right here still. So we're going to compare this. Those things, just if you want to refer to that previous video after you've watched this, what we covered there was running and saving games, Battle Chess, Speedball 2 and Worms playtests, CRT emulation mode for modern TVs, how to output to a CRT TV, an old one, display smoothing and other settings, and we also touched upon its specs. Not that they mean that much in this case. And finally, here's what happened when I had a little peek inside the case. Why they're little... What is going on? Those little things in there. This is bizarre. And I can now reveal to you that this is what I was looking at. Basically, there were little spare pieces of circuit board just glued under the keyboard to add stability to this prototype version. I thought at first glance that they were somehow some electronics, either for the main unit or something to do with the keyboard, but obviously, in hindsight, I feel like an idiot. We don't need this anymore, so time for the A500 Mini real unboxing. Put this somewhere safe. I feel a sort of giddiness. I feel sort of like I did in my teens. There's a very different place that the Amiga lives in my nostalgia compared to the Commodore 64. The one is a sort of childhood, innocent feeling, and the other one is a kind of teenage, coming-of-age feeling. And the Amiga really embodies that. And I've been thinking about getting this new one, and it really, I really am excited, as you can tell. Whoa! Look at that. There you go. You want to have a look? Yeah. You're still learning to read. Sorting the games. I didn't know you could do that. Well, let's do all this when we actually get the thing set up. Love it. Beautiful box here. It's got some glossy printing just on the devices. Kind of want to go just put this on a shop shelf and pick it off the shelf again, just so I feel like I'm really going into a store to buy this, because that's really lovely. Some of the games there, load your own package, and again some shiny elements there, very cute. It's got a contents. I don't remember the C64 Mini being this well packed, so get our cutty thing. Well, it's already open. I suppose they probably did a check for us on that. Oh, wow. is amazing. That is very special. I'm planning to sell the prototype in some kind of charity auction or maybe a raffle, but I might just keep this one for myself. Oh, look at those lines. So yeah, we've got the beautiful logo, a little boing ball as well. We've got the LEDs in there. The disk drive, of course, functioning. Not trying to swear. Some people said it would have been nice if they put the USB here, but probably would have cost you an extra $20 to have that. And I think we'd all probably say cost is the main element. Power button, power, HDMI, and our ports for controllers and USB stick. Oh my god. Can I just show you the detail on these keys? That is incredible. Probably laser etched. Like enter, it's quite easy to see that's a hollow depression. It's giving me anything but depression here. I doubt the caps lock lights up, but we'll see. We will see. That is... Sorry, I'm kind of blown away by how detailed that is. Yep, I can confirm they are the same. There's the quick guide that we had before, so... What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Ooh. Your guess is as good as mine. That's probably the gamepad and that's probably the mouse. I feel like a little kid at Christmas. Ooh. Yeah. Really lovely. Now, I did have trouble with this playing Speedball 2, and I wasn't sure if it was due to the position of the keys here, but I later looked at my Xbox and PlayStation, and they're actually quite similarly spaced. And then people pointed out in the comments, you really need a joystick to play Speedball 2. I probably chose the worst game, or the most challenging game for a gamepad, but other games should be a bit more of a dawdle, so we'll try that. I also quite like the dark one that they're selling as well. Ah, you may not get this with yours, but that explains why they opened the box. I heard something squeaking in here, and yes, it's a mouse. Look at that. I love that, my gosh. Brand new Amiga tank mouse with USB. And yep, as with the prototype, it is slightly smaller. I don't know if that's so much a cost saving as making it a bit less tank-like, but you can see they got the design just perfect. But in better news, we will no longer have to hard-boil eggs and use the yolks as balls for our mouse. But now I know some of you want to see inside here. Finally. Wow. So we have weights there to make it feel more substantive. That's our LED. So no caps lock LED, but that's our power and possibly disk drive LED. Now let's have a look at this PCB. You know, seeing this, it does make me think of PCBWay, where you can get great quality PCBs starting at just $5. They even have a retro stuffs section in their online community of shared PCBs. Because as we all know, PCB stands for Petite Commodore Box, doesn't it? Well, anyway. Slightly different screws here, so I'll keep them in a different receptacle. Go to retro recipes/tools for this. And there we go. Ladies and jelly beans, the inside of the A500 Mini. And to delve even deeper, I will use this lovely microscope sent to us by Occupuk. Right now, as you can see, there is a circuit board under there, a PCB.
Way!
I should say. See what we've got here. So that is our hard disk, essentially our solid state storage that won't be volatile when we turn the machine off. And this one's been installed upside down. But it's a Nanya, probably, because it's Nanya business. But just for fun again, 128M probably means megabytes. So we've got 256 megabytes of RAM total. The C64 Mini had 128. Again, doesn't really matter because we're not judging this by specs, but more how it runs. But I still think it's fun. Then we have various diodes and resistors. One very tiny chip. That is a A8038. That is a power management unit, which makes a lot of sense. And we just got more transistors, a timing crystal, a lovely big capacitor there. So like the real Amiga, one day we might have to recap this board. And that's our little switch that goes to the power button.
This is what it looks like. Look at this. This looks like a city, like a little model of a city. And all the houses which are here, and streets. This is maybe an elevator to go up there.
We do finally have this lovely heatsink on the processor. Should that stop us delving inside and taking a look? That is securely glued on there. Now I am adventurous, but I'm not stupid. The C64 had an all-winner A20 Sun 7i SoC with dual-core Cortex-A7 ARM CPU and a Mali 400 MP2 GPU, graphics processing unit. That's just off the top of my head. And they told us this features an all-winner H6 SoC, in other words, system on a chip. And inside that system is a quad-core Cortex-A53 ARM CPU and a Mali T720 MP2 graphics processor unit from ARM, which means I'm going to screw all this back together and you get to skip that and watch us go set it up. Come on, let's go. It's just so cute, isn't it? Check it out.
Wow.
Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
Look at the detail on the keys.
It's really cute.
Good thing with those keys is you can't break them. What are you doing?
Making a dress?
Why are you wearing a crown?
That's a stupid question.
Thank you, Princess.
You're welcome.
Goodbye, Princess. He's a boy. Now, I've already had a quick play with this so that I can bring you the information in the most concise way, but I can't wait to power it up and just let you see a few of the little things that this does differently to the prototype. Here. First thing you see is the little power light for the Amiga there. New startup screen, and welcome to the 1990s spa, only on Retro Recipes and the other channels that are showing very similar videos today. Yeah, we've got that beautiful music as before. Now the startup sequence, some people commented, or maybe 2 or 3 out of 50,000 on the last video, commented that they wish they'd put the Amiga disc with the hand holding the disc. But I think it's nice to mix some new stuff with the old, otherwise you're just going over old ground. So I like how this kind of updates things. I'm all for that. Now before we play some games, which is the fun stuff, and I show you how to load your own games off this little dingle dangle dongle, let me address one thing, which is Workbench. It is in theory possible to get Workbench working, no pun intended, there's always a pun intended, by loading the WHD load version of Workbench onto here. Thing is, you have to pre-configure that by loading the installer disks into the LHA archive file. It gets very complicated from there. And you also have to put any software you want with Workbench into that LHA archive. But I think that demands a video all of its own, so I'm not going to do that today because that's a bit of an involved process. This is marketed as a games machine. It's not meant to be a full Amiga. So getting Workbench running is essentially a hack, but I think still a fun one. But the fact that it's not easy is by design. You know, this wouldn't be the price that it is if it was a full Amiga. So fair play to them for just being honest with the marketing, but doesn't mean we can't try to hack it. So hold fire on Workbench, but yes, it is possible. Stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed, and all that good stuff. Now, a few people asked, can we play Worms with 2 mice or 2 controllers on the 2-player game? So allow me to demonstrate. Luckily we have the prototype mouse here as well. I'm going to plug that in, select Worms over here, and I'm going to show you. So, as you can see, I am using both mice, confusing myself and setting off a grenade. Game start. Between Andy and Chris. There's actually a reason I've chosen those two. I have been speaking to them because in the last video I mentioned there was no cutscene animations in this version. Turns out that's because the CD32 was the only version of the Commodore 64 game that had the cutscenes. But what I've been speaking to the WHD Load team and Chris and Andy from Team 17 about is, can we get the CD32 version put into WHD Load format so we can play it on this. Stay tuned for that. Now behold, pretend my right hand is Andy, or is it Chris? You can then see that when we switch to the other player, yes, you can use 2 mice to control the viewport. Hello. Goodbye. Love it. Lots of people want to see how included games like Alien Breed 3D, which is very challenging for the computer, that's what I mean. Very processor intensive, because it's kind of like Doom. Before that, let's just look what else we've got here. Got good old-fashioned Alien Breed 2D, Special Edition, Another World classic. You might have seen Ladyfractic do a lockdown live stream playing that. Arcade Pool, All-Terrain Racing, Battle Chess, played that last time. Cadaver, morbid. California Games, set here in Los Angeles. It's beautiful. Sorry, blinded myself with the studio lights. Trying to pretend that was the sun. Didn't work. Chaos Engine, chaotic. Dragon's Breath, F-16 Combat Pilot, Kickoff 2, The Lost Patrol, sad. Paradroid 90, Pinball Dreams, Project X, touched upon that in the last video as well. Quack, thank you THEA500. The Sentinel, Simon the Sorcerer, Speedball 2, played that last time on the prototype. Stunt Car Racer, careful how you say that. Supercars 2, Titus the Fox, there he is. Worms, Director's Cut, never heard of it. Zool, classic. Alien Breed 3D, oh, they put that on here twice. Oh, I see, it's looping. Okay, let's fire it up. Loaded instantly, as usual. Now, a nice thing is, rather than going into control options to set our keys, we can just hop back to the menu here, hit up, and it tells you all the keys. So then we just hit home to return to that little saved, paused game there. Play game. The bass loomed dead, silent in front of me. So atmospheric. Here we go. So to those asking, how does this work? How does it run? Is it fast and all that? As I walk into a wall. There we go, got some ammo. You can see for yourselves, basically. Yes, oh god. Strafe, oh good. Okay, so holding right changes your controls to strafe. Yes, okay. Oh, I just missed him. He's behind me. It's super fast, isn't it? It is basically Doom on an Amiga, isn't it? In a slightly small window, slightly low res. Now I could play this all day, but I think basically you get the idea with that. Beautiful. Now, here's an interesting thing. Let's quit out of that. Some people are worried about how 50 Hz games will work on a 60 Hz TV. Now, to explain that briefly, most games were designed for 50 Hz, that being the standard frequency, the power frequency of the power supply in the UK, 50 cycles per second. Similarly, PAL TVs ran at 50 FPS, 50 frames per second, whereas in the US, with the NTSC system, the power supply cycles at 60 Hz and the screens work at 60 Hz or 60 frames per second, essentially. So the question is, how does this handle playing a PAL game on an American TV or a modern 60 Hz HDMI TV? So if I go to options, system options, this is new. Mouse sensitivity, nearly said sense and sensibility. Mouse sensitivity, music volume. So we could, for the 2 people out of those 50,000 who watched the last video who hate the music, is that better? No. Sorry. And look at this, mimic Amiga behavior for the power LED. So you know I'm turning that on, and it will switch the LED from always on to the more normal Amiga behavior. I'll show you that in a moment. Here, we can flick to 60 Hz. I'm going to run a screen test. It's going to check my hardware. We can see immediately that works, so I hit save to save that setting. And there's, by the way, firmware versions and updates. Legal notice is pretty much the same, just a few more games companies mentioned. Factory reset? No. Shutdown device? No. What we can do, start this again. Now we are running at 60 Hz, and you tell me, do you see any issues? Let's try a big explosion. I would say that is indistinguishable from the 50 Hz version. So the answer is there any frame cadence? I would say no, it's just as good, if not better. Just to give you another example, here's a game I've never played. Andrew Braybrook, absolute genius. And those sound effects, quintessential Paradroid. And I have no idea what I'm doing. Apparently I do know how to shoot. Yeah. But as you can see, did I do something? Oh, charging? Hey, rude. You get one life, apparently, in this game. But as you can see, as soon as you're in the game, you've forgotten that you're running, essentially, an emulator. And some people did say, oh, I can just use a Raspberry Pi. This doesn't offer anything different. That's right, it's essentially just a Raspberry Pi, only it's not a Raspberry Pi, with a gamepad and an optical mouse and an incredibly detailed and nostalgic case and a fantastic menu system, and yeah, it's just a Raspberry Pi. Oh boy, it's hard to please some people, isn't it? You can hear the Sentinel moving around. Now I'm absorbing this tree. You get the general idea. What did he say? Sound like Amiga. Because we never got Sonic on the Migi, did we? So we have Zool instead. Yeah. Now, here's where the fun begins, because if I take my dingle dangle, WHD load files. That's because they've preloaded onto here what you're going to need to download when you supply, or if you even supply, a USB drive. Did I say USB? Unique selling point. Because as it explains in the manual, if you don't do that, it will display this handy dandy QR code that will take you to the right place to download those. You then install them on here, and what they carry in them is settings for all the other games that RGL have adapted or created special settings for to run perfectly on the A500 Mini. So let me put this in. They're going to keep updating that feature set, of course, and those settings files. But look, the little USB appears and it treats it like another game. And this beautiful workbenchy kind of thing appears here. So that's the folder I mentioned that they've pre-installed for me, but you'll just download this and you'll place it on your FAT32 formatted disk. Back. There we go. But I have copied a lot of games on here myself. Now I'm going to put a link in the description to a good resource to get WHD load games. One thing to note is if you go to the WHD load website, what you'll be downloading is just a wrapper without the actual game inside. So if you downloaded Carrier Command, you just get the wrapper, but you need to provide the game. But there are elsewhere on the internet full packages including the game. Only use those if you actually own the game in real life. I did, and my box is over there. So you've paid for the game and you own the license. Speaking of licenses, WHD Load, which is the system that allows all of this, because it's pre-installed, my understanding is RGL have essentially provided your license for you when you buy the A500 Mini, which is really nice because that's still a very current piece of software that you have to pay for to use. Again, you don't get that with just a Raspberry Pi. Now, I did try A Doom, which is another Doom clone, and Gloom, which is another Doom clone. You can see down the bottom, we can press menu for game settings and look at all this. You can increase the size of the window or decrease it. This is going to help when games run at different resolutions and look quite small in the window. Now I will say I did have to reduce this to 0 for most of them. They were up high for both of these, and I've pre-adjusted that for these games so they run perfectly. You can also swap the joystick ports, essentially mimicking what port you would have it in a real Amiga. You can swap those around. You can map the gamepad. Even you can map a CD32 gamepad, not just this one. And you can choose what keys go where. Here you have secondary controls. There's a total of 20 assignable buttons on here. Could hit A, and I can choose for that to mimic joystick buttons, or I can press this and choose for that to mimic a key press. Mouse speed, mouse sensitivity, you know what that does. Blitter mode is very useful because, as you know, the Amiga blitter chip would essentially take data out of the processor and keep it on screen, while the processor could then get on with doing other stuff. So that's what allowed the Amiga to have such amazing graphics. But this gives you 3 options because the processor inside here, they say, is running a lot faster. It's at least a Amiga 1200. Because of that, it can cause problems. So wait will essentially make things wait for everything to catch up. Normal will just run it as if it's a normal Amiga, which it's not, but that might work for you. And immediate will make it work even faster. So great options there if you have any trouble with blitter chip stuff. And here you can configure the memory. So look, we can get up to 10 megabytes. That's 2 megabytes of chip RAM and 8 megabytes of fast RAM. And all different combinations. The lowest being the stock Amiga 500. You've also got some optimizations for the copper. That was the coprocessor, hence the name. If you have trouble with anything that uses the coprocessor, you can flick that switch. And the same for the JIT, the CPU JIT. All of which means I can hit home to start Damocles and watch this little drive light when I do. If that isn't nostalgic, I don't know what is. Well, this is. Now you may be noticing this is running considerably faster than an Amiga 500. So let's just wait for it to autopilot land. This was such an incredible game. First solid 3D open world kind of game that I ever played. Just incredible. I also did a lockdown live stream playing this, as you may have seen. Okay, message received. Just look at this game. There's my little car. You'll notice some of the text is delayed, and that's because it didn't expect us to be processing that fast. There we go. Now, why I was able to pick that up is I mapped the up cursor to Y, which is the key that means collect an item. All I did was press menu for game settings, went to map gamepad, and you can see I assigned the Y button to key cursor up. Let me show you some really processor challenging games. These will really push the Amiga to its limits. Just hit home to start. You get that little flash as the Amiga boots. And there it is.
Into the wonderful, into the wonderful, into the wonderful, into the wonderful.
They don't make them like they used to, do they? So, a very graphically beautiful game. I knew I'd die there, but I just want to show you every element of the game.
Not once in the 5 years since the defeat of the mutant ants had anyone suspected that there was a second queen thirsting for the destruction of all that is human.
We've got other games like Operation Wolf. Now this again is processor intensive. Will you be surprised when it works beautifully? No, you won't. And look at this, we've got a little workbench going on here. Hey, let me in.
Operation Wolf.
Oh yeah. Okay, now check this out. Uses the mouse. Again, this game's not supported. I just added it myself. Look at this, guys. I'm able to play reasonably accurately. Not bad for 34 years of rust on my gameplay. Yeah. Get you. And they play just as well as Alien Breed 3D. You can at least see when it runs. This will reveal to you and reveal to us what emulator this is actually using under the hood. That screen, by the way, is generated by the Amiga. That's not built into the flash memory here. So it's running AmiBerry, which is a Raspberry Pi kind of emulator, I think based on UAE. But it's not just for Raspberry Pi, it's for any ARM-based processor. So that's how we know this has an ARM processor inside. Now, what I think is my favorite of the Amiga games of all time, Starglider 2. apparently they don't want me to play this. Again, I just downloaded it from the internet, and let's see. My very own original Starglider 2 box from my teens. One of the few things that I actually kept. That's how I knew a game was special to me, was I didn't sell it with the Amiga. Put that there. There we go. So a little example here where you have to use the keyboard. Just pop it up by pressing menu, E for English. You can type anything here because this has long since been cracked. And you have to hit enter, which is there, and you're in. Tell me this isn't one of the best games ever made. Look at that. Let's accelerate. Let's go up into space, through the atmosphere. There we go. Will we see space whales, perhaps? I just like blasting things, really. Life's too short. For them, it was. Starglider 1, of course, which I'm just going to press play on just for this. Sorry you had to watch that. Maybe it's funny faster. You can't press menu for E for English. What I could do though, it just occurred to me, could that actually help us? Let's try that. It works now. I fixed it all by myself. Press that, press E. Hey, I'm in. Awesome. Now this of course is a much simpler game, but if you want to know how fast this computer, it is a computer, can work, now you can see. Now here's an example where you'd want to increase the screen size. So again, we just press menu. Now to increase the screen size, it feels kind of counterintuitive. You actually decrease the cropping, because if you're cropping less, then you're seeing more, if you kind of know what I mean. And also turn on auto centering. And you've also got options for NTSC and interlace if you need them. See how this looks? Hey, full screen. Oh, guys, I could just sit here all day. This is just too fast though. Now one option that I didn't see is how to slow down the game or the processor. Because yeah, this is, you'd have to be superhuman to see that coming. I nearly flinched. That was like it was 3D. By the way, these options here only appear if in the main menu here you go to advanced options and turn on expert mode. But we're experts, so that's why I've turned that on already for us. Beautiful. And I'm guessing that saving your game at any point works the same for games that you've loaded from USB. Just hit down and hit A. And I still love how that becomes the disk label. So I could load that game back. Alright, with all the gameplay done, let's try some side-by-side tests to see how this stacks up against a real Amiga and that Raspberry Pi that we mentioned before. Well, isn't this a fun little setup? We've got the real A500, the A500 Mini, and Double Joy! Now, some of you will remember this is my crazy invention that lets me play two computers simultaneously with one joystick. That's the joystick. It goes into here. It's got some jiggery pokery inside. Actually, the circuit board's upside down, but I made a whole video about that if you want to watch it. And then it outputs the joystick movements simultaneously to these two joystick cables. And then coming around here, that goes in to the A500 Mini through this Retronic USB to 9-pin Atari adapter. So that means we can use an old joystick with that. So I've queued up Speedball 2, because what this is going to let us do is see the latency of the A500 Mini. In other words, what kind of slowdown is happening due to the emulation, the HDMI encoding, and does that affect gameplay? Now I can already tell you, no, it doesn't affect gameplay. I've been playing games on that and you do not notice the latency. But some people find it interesting, and it's a test we can do thanks to double joys. Oops, sorry Mickey. Now the interesting thing is Fire doesn't actually work with the double joy on the A500 Mini. That's probably down to this needing updated firmware, which it doesn't yet have, that little adapter. But we can still do up and down. Now you can watch that cursor yourselves and look for any latency. Interestingly, as I hold down, yeah, the one on the left's going a lot faster, and that's down to the processing speed. Now, a couple of quick things to note. I am recording this at 60 frames per second. So now they're both in sync, they're both on load league. I'm just going to hit down on here and we'll see what the timing difference is between the two. There we go. That's it. And over here I've loaded that 60 frames per second footage into Final Cut Pro. So let's cue it up to right when the CRT on the right hand side changes. Alright, now count with me how many frames until the Mini displays the same fully drawn rectangle. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's it. So 1 frame out of 60 is 16.6 milliseconds. Therefore 3 frames times 16.6 equals 49.9 milliseconds latency. But that's just our perceived latency, not actually what the Mini is doing. Because CRT screens have a latency of 8 milliseconds to draw an image down to the middle of the screen, or about 10 milliseconds to where our rectangle was. And this LCD panel has a latency of its own of 16 milliseconds, which means it is about 6 milliseconds slower than the CRT on the right. All of which means 49.9 milliseconds minus that 6 milliseconds delay added by the CRT leaves the A500 Mini with a built-in latency, also known as input lag, of around 43.9 milliseconds. To put that in perspective, a modern PC played with a Bluetooth gamepad exhibits input lag of, at best, 63 milliseconds. An online Stadia game streamed to you exhibits at best 125 milliseconds of lag, making our little Miggy 2¼ times faster to react. Not too shabby. Well, this keyboard doesn't work. I do know for a fact that somebody's working on a working version that you can modify this with, and I think we're going to get an advanced sneak peek at that, hopefully if they send it to us soon. But what I think a lot of us want to know is, does a real keyboard work with it? So with that real keyboard plugged in, what could we test it with? Okay, there it is. So, oh, I can just type. I was trying to get the pop-up keyboard. Oh, I'm so stupid sometimes. Does the keyboard... Well, it only gives us certain space. Keyboard work? Yes, it seems to. Yeah, this supports a regular QWERTY USB keyboard like this, and left and right windows will equate to left and right Amiga keys. It's not a lot of use case really for a keyboard with a games machine. Good to know that that works too. Right, don't need that anymore. With that done, let's do some more intensive tests. Bye-bye. And for those, let's head over to this new corner of the Retro Recipes kitchen, our music maker and emulation station. On the Raspberry Pi 400 here, we can run a whole wealth of retro systems, including the Amiga. And that means we can really compare the A500 Mini to one of the latest and fastest Raspberry Pis, itself also running AmiBerry. And for our first side-by-side speed test, let's see if Pinball Dreams loads at a dreamy speed. and well, no competition really, partly due to its processor and partly due to having the game on its flash memory instead of an SD card. The A500 Mini is instantaneous. Now, to be fair, a bare metal emulator or a Amiga would likely be a fair bit faster. Well, let's see how fast a level loads. Okay, same result. So let's level the playing field a bit and choose a different game that both the A500 Mini has to load from USB drive and the Pi has to load from SD card. Both comparable formats of removable media. And what better for a speed test but that old favourite of mine, Speedball. And there you go, the results speak for themselves. Pi400 0, A500 2. As you know, I created the Commodore 1541 Micro, which is my 3D printed case around a regular USB drive, and the C64 Mini and Maxi recognize it as a USB. So, take this out, plug this in, watch here. Oh, it is there. It works. So this is just telling us that this doesn't have the A500 stuff on the disk, but it's reading it like a USB drive. That is awesome. Well, there it is, the full production version of the A500 Mini. I think it is fantastic. You worried what I was going to say then, weren't you? So was I. As I said before, when we looked at the A500 Mini prototype, this just makes owning an A500 so much easier in this day and age. Worrying about Gotek ports to replace your floppy drive and all that stuff I explained before. With this, it just works, if I can borrow a phrase from a competitor of Commodore's. It really does just work. And they've done a fantastic job. So for this mega review, we give the A500 Mini our first ever score of 5 chips out of 5. It does exactly what it says on the box, but the production quality, the speed, and the optimization features exceed expectations. If I had to pick something they could improve, it would be nothing. Yeah, for my tastes, it's just that good. Links are in the description to order your A500 Mini if you would like to. She's tired of waiting for hers to arrive. Maybe I should just give her the one that we've got already. Either way, thanks so much for watching. I'll be back soon with another delicious retro recipe. Subscribe and support below, and cheerio. Say cheerio. That's my hat. Thank you. Cheerio.